Okay, so, newsflash. Metroid is getting a new game. Big deal. That's happened like 11 times before. What makes it so important now? Well, there's a lot of things, honestly. Metroid was originally a title for the one and only family entertainment system of discs, and it featured Samus Araña. The job of Samus Araña was to go to a planet Sebas and stop the space pirates because, motherfuckers, there's piracy in one place, there's simulation in every place. You gotta get the ninjas to act fast and act efficient. And it was like a revolutionary title. You could go to like, you could go to the left and up and down and unlock a new power and that door open up. Then it was like wizardry and you fought these alien creatures and you were like, oh wow, that's so cool. But like at the same time, the game was a last minute essay that had a good idea but went off the rails a bit too much. It was a roller coaster made out of duct tape and randomly just like, hell if I know, dying between the walls because these giant mosquitoes chase through here just like in damn real life. They're everywhere, them. Get out of my house. Or like, how about when you have no idea what to do and like a good labyrinth given to you by the service at a restaurant to keep that goopy goblin gamer brain of yours occupied? Here in Metroid, for the nope, extremely unlikely someone of your caliber will actually know what to do, you just get lost and there is nothing to guide you around but bumping the walls and hoping that one of them has an elusive passage that allows you to continue in this maze. Or hell, how about the fact that there's a beginner's trap at the entrance of Torian before beating Barney and crew? Or the fact that most enemies are too low, or too high, or too in a weird angle to properly hit. Like, okay, it was revolutionary and everything, but like, damn, when I was like playing Zero Mission and Super Metroid, and when I also have Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions and Nintendo DS, like, what reason do I have to go back to this game, huh? It's a time capsule for like, but like, for a casual video game enjoyer, your experience may be either good or not really that good, like most other things, I guess. But like, I guess it's depending on what you see worthy in video games. You may find some value in it. But like, isn't there a sequel called Metroid 1.0 plus 1.0? Then not Return of Sam? I mean, yeah, you can call it that. I also like to call it Sleep Paralysis Demon 2. Now with color blindness. Claustrophobic people, don't play this game. This is quite certainly the biggest, smallest hallway you will see, and I don't think the entirety of the game can make up for it. Now you are hunting the Metroid down to extinguish them once and for all, which we all know is a lie because there's another 10 entries in the series. However, it's a noble concept that is vital to the entire storyline. However, yeah, it's not that good, I think. The bosses are repetitive, the hallways are samey, the upgrades are absolute doo-doo, and so is the pacing. Second burst is indeed same as the first, but now there is absolutely no color. Out of all video game series, at least now I know that at least one of them shouldn't be in the Game Boy. And like, the atmosphere and the science storytelling is there, and that's great and all, but like, stepping on 10 Lego instead of 20 is only going to take away the pain so much. And I mean, like, hell, even the soundtrack was here graying at times, and I know I forgot to mention the tunes of Metroid 1, which by the way, were boppin', but I want to make clear that making me go deaf from color scene negative is absolutely not the way to do a soundtrack. Joshio Sakamoto is the name that most people credit to Metroid's existence. However, he wasn't that involved originally from what I've heard, at least for the second game. I don't even think he was actually involved in the development of the second game for the most part. He will only really show his genius when the time was right, the price was right, the console was right, and BOOM! Is the 90s Now we have this shiny new game, and it looks prettier and more epic than ever before. And do you see that sprite work? This isn't your older brother's friend's Metroid. This is Super Mario Brothers. I mean, like, we can like go fast and stuff and jump. Come look at this, man. Oh god, that actually hurt. This world is bigger and better and with more butt for Samus to kick. This is like the second coming of Christ. Super Metroid was revolutionary, groundbreaking, outstanding, unique, fashionable, popular, well-rounded. It set the standard for the next 9 games in the series, and it was cool, dude. I'm sorry for that one. This game was more open and had more secrets, and was a master of its craft that managed to make a map that was bigger than both predecessors combined. But the game makes the map digestible. It guides you in such a way that you never really notice. You see all of the keys that you have to open, you just have to remember that they're there too, which, to be fair, you will most likely remember because they make them memorable. These are set pieces you need to remember, and they really stand out to the player, and the graphics are also really well polished. The music is possibly the best in the series yet! Like, listen to this, man, listen to this! The environmental and silent storytelling has been dramatically improved compared to previous entries. Everything has improved compared to the previous entries in general. After this, every single Metroid, nay, every single Metroidvania / action, adventure, exploration, whatever type of game has been trying to do what Super Metroid achieved in their own way. All to varying success, of course, but for the most part it has gone really well. The problem is that Metroid kind of disappeared after Super, just increased everyone's expectation. And like, you're wondering, but why? What happened here? We were like in the 1990s, and now we're in the 2000s, baby. Alright, but then after a couple of years, like, I don't know, like, how many was it? 7? 8? I don't know, somewhere along those lines. Fusion happened. A big departure, because now they were telling you what to do at every moment, and you can now download the missiles. What the fuck? The problem that most people had with the game was just the lack of player freedom from what I've seen. It is very linear, and I can see why people don't like it as much. The level design is still really solid, but in some cases it felt less like a Metroid game. But you know what? I can forgive it for that. Because open that book, Timothy. We are going to read. We are telling a story. We are reading in this house today. Metroid Fusion is the most story-heavy game in the series, apart from that, obviously. And it has some pretty shocking revelations that kind of change how we look at some of the key players in the story. Zero Mission happened afterwards, and honestly, it was a lot of fun. Like, the game is possibly one of the best balances between Super Metroid and Fusion, since you can make it as linear as you want, or you can sequence break basically the entire way through. You don't really have to follow a set path, and it is really fun. You should honestly play, like, I don't know, get a Wii U. However, it was not perfect. The items can feel a bit like padding, and they're very far away. Backtracking is a bit of an issue with the game. 100% can become tedious because you can only really start 100% in the game once you get the final upgrade, which is basically right before you go into the final boss of the game. The bosses and the game in general was also very easy, which was an issue with Super Metroid, and thankfully it was solved in Metroid Fusion. However, I do kind of wish that Metroid Zero Mission was a bit harder. I don't really think that's much of a deal breaker, but I mean, I can wish, right? However, after Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid as a 2D series just kind of pissed off and decided never to show up again for 13 years! Alright, you gotta understand. Metroid as a series was doing good enough. By the release of Zero Mission, there was already Metroid Prime. Months after Zero Mission, we got Metroid Prime 2. We got Metroid Prime Hunters at some point, Metroid Prime 3. We got a damn Prime number calculator in our hands. But like, the series was kind of dead, but it wasn't. But some fans kinda wished it was. I do not think I have to mention Metroid Other M or Metroid Federation, Force, Prime, Lasagna. As much as what you think of them in a negative or positive light, you gotta admit that they really weren't what the franchise needed at those points in history, and they just kinda made the franchise look more dead than it really was. Especially because just 1 year after Metroid Prime Federation Force, we will get a very good remake of Metroid Prime 2. Metroid Samus Returns was just what the franchise needed. Like, it releases and there's a spark of hope as we see our favorite bounty hunter, thought of as dead, come back with a solid remake, and we were like, whoa! The game was just a pretty damn good overall upgrade to Metroid 2, to the point that Metroid Samus Returns and Metroid 2 are kind of two different games in a point. It's like kind of Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII. Like, these games are nothing alike. However, it still had a couple of issues to like with the source material and stuff. You know, the bosses were still kind of repetitive. You were fighting 40 metrics. Of course, it was gonna get samey at some point. The enemies also did a lot of damage, and I don't know if that was kind of justified. Like, I could get in Metroid like Fusion, However, like that one had the story, like this one didn't, which also meant that linearity was a bit more noticeable. It was still a great game, just not the best 2D Metroid game, and people didn't know what to expect afterwards, since 4 years passed. Metroid Prime 4 got delayed and restarted since they weren't liking how it was going. The most that we got from Samus was that she appeared in the Smash Bros. Ultimate, and that Super Metroid was coming to the SNES Switch Online system. However, what most people don't know, or maybe do know, was that there was supposed to be a fifth entry a long while ago for the DS, and it was supposed to be called the Metroid Dread. The entry got cancelled because of technical limitations at the time, but the idea was still there. It was restarted on the 3DS, it didn't work, and a couple of years later, the Fusion team just kinda said, screw it, and just kinda asked Mercury's team, hey we need a hand over here. And they kinda pissed a couple of pants and Joy during E3. I may have been one of them, since they announced Metroid 5, and it was called Metroid Dread, which was coming out this very year, and I have it in my hand, so how about we play the damn thing, eh? You know what? Something I've actually never understood was why in Metroid Dread you couldn't actually skip the story recap. I understand that in Super Metroid this was an SNES game, in Zero Mission there was barely a recap, and Metroid Fusion there was a recap, however, I could also get it in there, it was a GBA game, but this is just a minor nitpick, okay? I just kind of wish that I could, skip the cutscene to immediately get started with the game. Again, it's not something that is going to ruin the game experience for me. I'm not gonna rate the game at 0 out of 10, too much cutscene, but I just want to get started with the game, man. Come on, I got a game to play. Okay, so story recap. After Fusion, the Galactic Federation got sent a video showing the X-Parasite alive and well in the planet of CDR. To verify the environment, they sent some super new technology called the EMMI. They lose it, and they send Samus to check what happens, because at this point I'm pretty sure Samus is just their test subject. I feel like it's kind of fair that we can call her that. However, Samus absolutely can't catch a single W in this type of games, because she immediately uses her powers after fighting this weird Choso, or even Beak, and after encountering the EMMI, the hostile environment, and just not wanting to fight Bird Boy again, Samus gets told by Adam that the best choice of actions is to get the f*** out. The story does develop as the game goes on, but again, I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it. Everything I'll say from now on is that the game has a good story and an interesting twist. God, how many minutes has it been and I haven't even talked about the gameplay? Okay, I need you to understand why Metroid Dread is important, okay? I had to go through this macaroni and cheese Walmart Best Valley looking ass recap section, because it is important to understanding why Metroid Dread as we know it is such an important title. Alright, with all of that said, oh my god, this game is so good, guys. I swear to god. Alright, so, to begin, Jesus, this is beautiful. I know that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but the beholder says that this is beautiful, and any opinion differing is actually sick in the head. The graphics are really, what's the right word without sounding generic? They fill me with childlike wonder. I don't think that what I like about Metroid Dread are the graphics. I mean, I do, but I like more what the art direction. You see, in past games like Super or Zero Mission, the art direction was more organic, a bit more unexplored, unknown. The environments felt like actual planets. They felt like there was actual wildlife living in there. You were exploring uncharted territories. In Fusion, however, the art direction was to make everything feel artificial, since we were in a space station made by the Galactic Federation, opposed to an actual planet. You can notice some things right away, since like in the background, you can notice things that just make you remember that this was natural, this was a copycat, an imitation, a faker. Metroid Dread takes place in a planet that has been colonized and contains constant signs of life like the Chosen Warriors. The art direction here will be more akin to a world ruled by a tribe more than anything, with all the technology clashing with the life in CDR. And I personally really like it. Every enemy, every environment truly feels like stepping into an enemy territory, uncharted territory, every territory. And while in the topic of enemies, damn it, those bastards look pretty as hell. They have such a feel to them. They are constantly feeling new. with new variations of enemies, and even more enemies that are just like differently designed, appearing in new areas. Especially speaking, I don't think this game ever got stale in my 3 playthroughs. What truly sold this clash between technology and nature were the EMMI areas, where it goes full technological in its overwhelming use of white. It marks a sharp contrast with the rest of the game. This is something very common in most Metroidvanias, having an entire section of the map different from other sections solely based on colors. It's a really nice way to indicate the player that you're reaching new areas, the most famous example of this being clearly games like Hollow Knight. I mean, just like look at those areas, you can tell it's them because this one is pink. Anyways, to finish gushing about the art style, I want to touch up on Samus's design, doing a bit more of a standard per se form. It definitely felt more natural to me than the Fusion shoot ever did, effectively showing that some time has passed between Fusion and Dread. I do still like the old color palettes of the standard suit more than the ones in Dread, but I stopped caring about that once we get to the Barrier and Gravity suit, which definitely bring those familiar colors back home. I am aware that some people may not be the biggest fans of this suit or the art style, and I can see why, but honestly, I think it does the job perfectly. Now, all of this isn't demeritating the graphics, as they're still vibrant, and they have some areas that were truly breathtaking in my opinion. It's just that I feel those 4K graphics isn't everything. Constantly seeing people compare games and their graphics solely based on how many particles and textures we can shove on this guy's or that guy, and when what truly sells the game is the art style, or a combination of both. Alright, here's when I'm truly speaking out of my ass. Personally, the reason of why people, or I'm speaking more for myself here, the reason of why I gave Pokemon Sword and Shield so much crap was because the art direction was just empty fields with 1 or 2 trees out of place and act like people won't care. Routes with no distinction or personality whatsoever. They're all straight lines, having no natural transition between areas, making some effects look odd. Combine that with straight lines for routes, bad animations, plus muddied and dirty looking textures, and what you get is a game that doesn't feel like an experience you get invested in, but a generic RPG, and the main reason of why these 2 games were criticized to no end. And now, compare it to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game made as a launch title that completely understood what it wanted to be. I can easily tell you that when it comes to graphics, the frame rate is unstable for one. It definitely doesn't look as pretty as other games since it's not in 4K, it's limited to the 720p 1080p of the Nintendo Switch. However, that doesn't really matter, since combining associated anime-esque art style in a world that feels alive, as alive as a post-apocalyptic world can feel, I don't know how that works, and actual detail in the animations in a game that isn't rushed, you get a game that may not have graphics that actually like grab my head and suck me into the game world, but are still distinct and memorable and truly special. Anyways, rant over, back to Metroid. Dude, but the controls are so good though! Okay, so a problem that Metroid always had was how cramped this control scheme was. So they just kinda had to improvise on how to make all of these upgrades fit on an SNES controller. There was always a certain level of jank in the earlier games. The Game Boy Advance games didn't have as many upgrades, so I didn't have any trouble there. However, the 3DS and SNES were barely surviving out there. Samus Returns, I'm surprised it wasn't exclusive to the new Nintendo 3DS, as it would have greatly increased the enjoyment in the game if I didn't have to touch screen the screen every 2 seconds. Like, look at the original 3DS model and you'll be surprised they even got Samus Returns to work in there. In that aspect, yeah, Metroid Dread is like Samus Returns. Most of the upgrades in there are returning except for the Ice Beams and, you know, Metroid DNA. And you know, that makes me wonder, does Samus drink ice water without the gravity suit? Unlike the previous entries, now we got a bajillion buttons to use, and we take advantage of all of these magnificent creations, and we can easily go from using the beam to using the missiles and go to the grapple beam, and it feels wonderful. And for the most part, that is because the select button no longer has to be abused. The game just feels quicker, snappier. There's a certain flow to the game in general, and that flow makes for a very fun ride through CDR, since again, you aren't constantly stopping trying to get the right weapon in there to open the door. And now that I think about it, why did we also have to press select for the super bombs in Super Metroid? Well, anyways, in summary, the controls are streamlined, they have no fat, and they're an absolute joy to use. And Samus is an absolute joy to play as in general. As a matter of fact, I feel like that's how I describe the game. With no fat, the truest evolution of not only Fusion, but also Super Metroid. Dude, honestly, if I had to tell you that one of my favorite parts about the game is the way that the map is done, would you believe me? And I mean, it's not like the map was ever bad before, but now it truly tells you where you have or haven't been. There has been a couple of cases where I go to this place and it tells me I've gotten an upgrade, but then there's another upgrade in there, or there's this place and like it tells me that I can still get an upgrade, and I'm like, oh Joe, I want to go in there now, but then oops, you didn't have the right upgrade to get the new upgrade, so tough luck, my guy. It tells me I haven't opened the door, go in there, I backtrack all the way over there, and oh man, I backtracked for nothing. But now they tell you which abilities, well, they don't really tell you until you unlock the abilities, but they do tell you that you don't have the right thing to open this wall or this door yet. It's just a quality of life improvement that makes 100%ing a bit easier. And you're gonna be thankful it's here, especially with how big the map is. This is possibly the biggest map in the entire Metroid series, at least the 2D games. I do know that the Metroid Prime maps are quite big, but like we aren't talking about those, so let's ignore that. The map is very big and contains a lot of secret goodies. Almost everywhere, as a matter of fact, but it isn't that daunting of a task to find them. Whether it'll be the energy tank parts, normal energy tanks, missile packs, or the big upgrades out of exploration to be easier, this game takes full advantage of the world you play in. Don't get me wrong, I love Metroid Prime with all of my heart. It is my absolute favorite Metroid game. However, I cannot deny that backtracking is a bit of annoying thing in Metroid Prime, suffering from the classic go from one edge of the world to the next and then all the way back, and I could see the game being considered worse by other players because of that, and Dread could have possibly suffered from the same issue. If it wasn't for the sick fast travel, baby, let's go! The locations are pretty unique, and so the colonized planet by bird people look really well. Like, look at them go! Like, man, I swear, like, the controls are so good, the map is great, the pace is just constantly flowing, and every upgrade has their use. Wait. I just remembered the double jump was there. And like an hour later, you can get the space jump. Why did we get a double jump again? Like, just give us the high jump, man. Not a double jump, especially if that thing is gonna be useless in less than an eye. The upgrades are constantly being used and they always serve a purpose, even if a bit minor. And I love it since that means no upgrade feels like a waste of time. The sense of growth that was in prior games is there and accounted for, and again, it feels satisfying as always to become the most powerful things on the planet. A good sign of a good Metroidvania, quite definitely. Everything in your arsenal will be used, believe it or not. Your skill is going to be tested more than once, and god damn it, you will need to be prepared because this game can also be pretty hard at times. However, it also feels very fair. A lot of the bosses do cause a bit of tomfoolery with your health bar. Samus is no tank in this game. I mean, she is kind of a tank, but not as big of a tank as she was in Zero Mission or Super Metroid. Either that or the enemies break solid vibranium for breakfast. I honestly don't know. The patterns for the bosses are a bit harder to evade. They are quicker and more durable, definitely stronger. However, there are also ways to get around them. More on that later, actually. I don't want to spoil you the surprise just yet. Where you will definitely feel the difficulty is with the EMMI. You see, like, half of the damn map is behind this type of doors. Look at this. It's like a glitch, man. Am I certainly watching like that new Cartoon Network thing? Anyways, whenever you enter, you realize you've been shoved into a bad horror movie. So here's the shtick. The EMMI are unkillable for the most part. Enemies that contain certain abilities that should belong to Samus, but as you all know, it's either losing them or just selling them to the black market, because I honestly do not know what Samus does with them at this point. The enemies are fast. They can hear you from a relatively long distance, and the moment they see Samus, they forget everything that they were doing and start hunting your dumb ass down, because speed was just never an option. They can go through basically any and every part of the map, even if you can't at the moment, meaning that they are in creative mode while you're in like damn survival, and that makes everything absolutely fantastic. It's very tense being chased by one of those bitches, and all it takes is one wrong turn at the left avenue And whoops, now we're in Hades land. Hello. Yeah, you're gonna be seeing that game over screen a lot during these sections of the map. And I mean, you can counter the EMMI. They give you a whole like 2 chances to do so. However, the chances of doing that on your first playthrough are slim at best. You do eventually learn how to deal with them. However, you kinda have to respect their area, you feel me? Okay. I know I've been ranting and ranting, and what does any of this mean, eh? The pointless, half-baked, rushed dialogue. Well, has there been any reason as to why the last 3,600 plus words have been said? Well, no, not really. But like, I just wanted to talk about how much I really love Metroid Dread and what it does. I've played every 2D Metroid game, and by the time the script is done, I'll probably be done with Fusion. But still, I don't exaggerate when I say that this is my second favorite Metroid behind Prime. Definitely my favorite 2D Metroid, and it just does everything so well. Except for the music, which I don't think hits as hard as other games in the series. It ain't no Brinstar Overgrowth, I'll tell you that much. However, it is still a kick-ass journey, and my favorite part about it is just how much freedom you get. Sequence breaking is the most intentional it's ever been, and it feels so good to pull it off because it really makes you feel like you are outsmarting the game, even if the game has been designed with the purpose of letting you do all of this. It allows for a lot of quick kills and doing this or that and getting upgrades before they're due. It makes you feel like a damn king. It leads to a lot of replayability. And honestly, I actually kind of wish there was a randomizer mode in a future DLC update. I don't know. Everything about the game is super solid, and I cannot recommend it enough. Please buy it. Metroid needs this. Metroid needs to do well, and I know it's doing very well, but I want it to do even better. I want to show Nintendo that Metroid is not just a one and done series that you only make a game out of every 2 generations. I know that when it comes to reviews, I definitely skipped Metroid 2, Metroid Super, and Metroid Fusion. However, don't worry about them. I'll talk about them soon enough after Kotaku stops being such a bitch about Metroid Dread. It'll definitely take a while.